The rain hammered on the thin metal roof of the blue trailer like impatient fingers. Laura stared at the ceiling, counting the drips that slipped through the leak above her bed. Beside her, the red notice from the park management lay crumpled, edges softened by her thumb. The words "late payment" burned louder in her mind than the thunder outside. She was 50 years old and learning, for the first time, what it meant to have nowhere else to go. She turned the notice over, as if the back might hold a kinder message. Instead, she saw only the faint stains of old water rings on the cheap table underneath. The trailer shook slightly with a gust of wind, a reminder of how fragile everything was now. Her old house had never trembled like this, not even in the worst storms. Back then, she had believed walls could protect her from everything that hurt. Her phone lit up on the table, her daughter's name glowing like a lighthouse. For a split second, Laura imagined answering and confessing everything. The overdue bills, the job she had lost, the nights spent staring at a peeling ceiling. Instead, she watched the call fade into silence, her shame heavier than the storm clouds. She told herself she was protecting her daughter from worry, but it tasted like a lie. Thunder rolled over the park, followed by a burst of laughter from outside. Through the blinds, she saw silhouettes running between trailers, dodging puddles. Kids shouted, someone turned up a radio, a dog barked at the sky. Life continued in the park, loud and messy, even while she felt frozen. She wondered how everyone else here had gotten used to losing so much. The leak above her bed grew bolder, a steady tap into the metal bowl she had placed. Each drop sounded like a question she could not answer in time. How long can you stay here, Laura? What happens when the month ends and the notice is no longer just a warning? She swallowed hard, the air thick with the smell of damp fabric and rust. She got up and padded across the narrow floor in worn socks. The trailer was a tunnel of shadows. Tiny kitchen, cramped table, boxers stacked like ghosts. In the reflected light of a passing car, the blue paint outside glowed dull and tired. She pressed her palm against the thin wall and felt the night pressing back. Just one more month, she whispered, not sure who she was begging. The rain softened a little, but the tension inside her did not. She folded the notice and slid it under a stack of unopened envelopes. Out of sight never meant out of mind, but she needed a few hours of pretending. As she lay back down, her heart beat louder than the storm outside. She closed her eyes and wondered what rock bottom felt like, and whether this was already it. Morning arrived without asking how she had slept. Sunlight leaked through the thin curtains, turning dust into floating glitter. The storm had passed, leaving the park wet and shining in uneven puddles. The trailer smelled of damp clothes and something old she could not quite name. Laura pushed herself up, feeling every year of her age in her joints. Cardboard boxes lined the wall, like a silent audience. They still wore the names of rooms that no longer existed. Kitchen, living room, master. Her old life had been packed in a hurry, shoved into a moving truck with strangers. The bank's envelope had been cold and official, explaining how the house was no longer hers. She remembered signing papers with a hand that would not stop shaking. She opened a box labeled fragile photos and peeled back the tape. Inside, frames clinked softly against each other, faces trapped behind glass. There she was, at 30, on the porch of the old house, hair lighter, smile easier. Another photo held her ex-husband arms around her, and their little girl, the lawn perfect. She studied that version of herself and tried to recognize the woman she had been. The phone on the table vibrated again, a text from her daughter, Erin. "Hey Mom, how are things? Need anything?" Laura stared at the words, her fingers hovering over the screen. She typed, "I'm fine, just busy with work," then paused, feeling the lie like a stone. Still, she hit send. The familiar reflex, faster than her courage. She told herself she would explain everything once she was back on her feet. Once the bills were caught up, once she found another job that sounded respectable. Once the trailer was a temporary story, not the main chapter. She did not want her daughter to picture this blue box with its rattling windows. She wanted to be a hero in recovery, not a mother collapsing in place. Outside, a lawnmower buzzed somewhere between the trailers. Voices drifted in, to neighbors arguing about rent, someone calling a child's name. She wondered what stories had brought all of them here, into this strange orbit. Did they still look at old photos too, or had they long stopped torturing themselves? She felt both connected to them and completely separate, as if behind glass. Laura closed the box and pressed the tape back down firmly. The past, for now, would stay cushioned in cardboard, safely out of reach. She grabbed a mug and poured cheap coffee, bitter and thin. As she sipped, she tried to imagine a version of herself who was just passing through. But the silence in the trailer hinted that this place might not let her go so easily. The sun climbed higher, turning the trailer park into a maze of light and shadow. Laura stepped outside, blinking at the bright Florida sky. The blue of her trailer looked faded against the harsh daylight, chipped at the corners. Gravel crunched under her shoes as she walked, pretending she had somewhere to be. In truth, she just needed to feel the air that wasn't recycled through a window unit. She passed a trailer with pink flamingos stuck in the patchy grass. A woman in a floral robe smoked on the steps, watching Laura with open curiosity. "Morning," the woman called, her voice rough but not unkind. Laura lifted a hand in a small wave, hoping to slip by unnoticed. But the woman smiled wider, as if sensing someone new trying to stay invisible. "You're in the blue one, right?" the woman asked, nodding toward Laura's trailer. "Yeah," Laura answered, surprised by how small her voice sounded. "I'm Denise," the woman said. "Been here 8 years, longer than I planned." The way she laughed at herself made the words both sad and defiant. Laura laughed too, though she wasn't sure if she found anything funny. Farther down the row, a man in a wheelchair adjusted a wind chime. The metal pieces clinked softly in the breeze, a fragile kind of music. He glanced at Laura, then gave a short nod before turning back to his chime. A little boy rode a bike with one training wheel missing, wobbling but determined. The park felt like a collage of broken pieces still trying to move. Laura wondered what stories people imagined about her. Maybe they thought she was just passing through, waiting for something better. Maybe they assumed she had messed up badly to end up here at 50. The truth was more complicated, tangled in layoffs, medical bills, and a marriage that cracked slowly. But all anyone could see from the outside was a woman in a faded t-shirt by a blue box. As she circled back toward her trailer, she heard 2 voices behind her. "New lady in the blue one," someone said, not bothering to whisper. "Think she last," another voice answered with a chuckle. The words stung, even though they weren't meant to. She kept walking, shoulders tightening, the gravel suddenly louder beneath her steps. Back inside, the air felt heavier than before. She closed the door and leaned her back against it, listening to the muffled world outside. Maybe this place was a waiting room for people whose lives had gone off script. Maybe that's all she was now. A name on a list of those who ended up here. Yet, a restless part of her refused to believe this was the last line of her story. Night found her awake again, eyes tracing cracks in the ceiling. The digital clock blinked to 17 a.m., then to 18, then to 19, in slow red insistence. Her thoughts circled the same worries: rent, food, the job applications no one answered. Her chest felt tight, like the air had been filtered through all her fears. She sat up, unable to lie still in the bed that knew all her anxieties. In the dim light of the kitchenette, she opened a random box. Inside, among old dish towels and a chipped mug, she found a worn notebook. The cover was stained with oil and flour, the edges softened by years of use. Her mother's handwriting looped across the front. "Recipes do not lose." Laura smiled, despite herself, the words echoing like a gentle scold from the past. She flipped through pages filled with measurements and little notes. "Add more sugar if company is coming. Good for bad days," next to a chocolate cake recipe. And in the corner of one page, Laura's favorite, "Don't let her eat it all." She traced the ink with her fingertip, feeling 12 years old again. On impulse, she gathered what ingredients she had: a little flour, sugar, eggs, a small bottle of vanilla she had almost forgotten. The trailer's tiny oven clicked as she turned it on, its heat buzzing to life. She stirred everything together in a scratched metal bowl, muscles relaxing with the rhythm. For the first time in weeks, her mind focused on something other than survival. As the cake baked, a warm smell began to fill the trailer. Butter, sugar, and memory swirled together in the stale air. She closed her eyes and could almost hear her mother's radio playing in the background, could almost feel the cool tile of the old kitchen under her bare feet. For a moment, the blue trailer blurred, and she was back in a safer world. The timer dinged, startling her out of the daydream. She pulled the cake from the oven, its surface cracked but golden. It was not perfect, but it looked more beautiful than anything else in the trailer. She cut a small slice and took a bite, the taste flooding her with bittersweet comfort. Tears surprised her, hot and sudden, mixing with the warmth of the cake. She ate slowly, holding the plate with both hands like an anchor. The worries were still there, stacked like unpaid envelopes on the table. But in that quiet moment, with crumbs on her fingers, she felt a tiny spark of calm. The cake did not solve anything, yet it soothed something inside her that had been screaming. She set the plate down and wondered what else this little oven might be able to give her. By mid-morning, the trailer still held the scent of last night's baking. It clung to the curtains, settled into the cushions, floated in the warm air. Laura opened the window to let some heat out, hoping the oven's work wouldn't waste the electric bill. A breeze caught the smell and carried it out into the park like an invitation. She watched the curtains billow, unaware of who else might be breathing it in. A knock sounded on her door, 3 quick taps. She hesitated, wiping her hands on her jeans as if guilty of something. When she opened the door, Denise stood there in a faded t-shirt and flip-flops. "That smell is coming from you, isn't it?" Denise asked, already peering past her shoulder. Laura laughed nervously, stepping aside a little without meaning to. Denise's eyes landed on the cooling rack with the half-eaten cake. "Oh, honey, you've been holding out on us," she said, grinning. "I just couldn't sleep," Laura replied, feeling shy about something so simple. Denise leaned closer, inhaling like she was memorizing the scent. "You mind if I try a piece? I'll pay you back in neighborhood gossip." Laura cut a small slice, embarrassed by the cracked top and uneven edges. Denise took a bite and closed her eyes dramatically. "Okay, this is rude," she declared. "You move in here with cake like this, and don't tell anyone." The compliment landed deeper than Laura expected, warming a place beyond her cheeks. For a moment, she felt like she had something worth offering again. Word traveled faster than she would have believed. A teen from 2 trailers down knocked next, snickering but hopeful. Then the man with the wind chimes rolled up, asking if he could trade a bite for fixing that loose step. Laura found herself slicing the cake into thinner and thinner pieces. Each "this is really good" stitched a tiny patch onto her torn sense of self. "You know people would buy this, right?" Denise said, licking frosting from her fork. "There's always someone here needing a little pick-me-up with their coffee." Laura shook her head automatically, the idea feeling almost silly. "I'm not a business," she protested, the word feeling too big for her tiny kitchen. But the thought refused to disappear as quickly as she wanted it to. When the last crumb was gone, the trailer felt strangely full of footprints, laughter, and the echo of compliments she wasn't used to hearing. The blue walls didn't seem quite as lonely with the memory of visitors lingering. Laura stood in the middle of the small space, hands on her hips, thinking of ingredients. For the first time since moving in, she wondered not just how to survive here, but what she might build. Laura stood at the tiny counter, staring at the handwritten sign she had taped to the window. "Homemade cakes, fresh today." The marker ink looked shaky, like her confidence. She kept adjusting the angle of the paper, though it didn't matter. Her hands trembled with the fear of looking foolish in front of strangers. Selling cake from a trailer felt like admitting how far she had fallen. She mixed batter with more care than she ever had before. Each stir felt like a small step into territory she didn't trust. When the oven clicked on, her heart sped up as if preparing for judgment. The trailer grew warm with the smell of vanilla and anxiety. She wiped her palms on her jeans, wishing courage came as easily as flour dust. Outside, neighbors passed by without stopping, glancing but not approaching. She wondered if the sign made her look desperate or brave. Maybe both, she thought, swallowing hard as footsteps approached. A teenager she vaguely recognized paused at the door. "How much for a slice?" he asked, voice cracking a little. Her throat tightened before she managed to speak. $2, she said, surprised at how steady she sounded. He handed over the coins and accepted the slice, like it was nothing special. But to Laura, the moment hit with the force of a small miracle. Money for her work money, she earned with her own hands again. After he left, she pressed the coins into her palm. They were warm, metallic, and strangely symbolic. The simplest exchange, yet she felt something shift inside her chest. A thin thread of hope tugged at her, fragile but undeniable. She wasn't invisible here, not entirely. Word spread slowly, then a little faster. A couple of neighbors came by, hesitant but curious. Some bought slices, others just wanted to smell the kitchen again. Each interaction chipped away at the wall of shame around her. She felt herself standing straighter, breathing a little deeper. When afternoon light slipped across the floor, she sat at the small table. The day's earnings weren't much, barely enough for groceries, but the weight of humiliation had lifted slightly. replaced by something steadier. Not pride exactly, but the beginning of it. She looked at the empty plates and whispered, "Maybe I can do this." The next morning, she awoke with purpose instead of dread. She measured flour, sugar, and hope with equal uncertainty. But baking under pressure proved to be different from baking for comfort. The first batch burned on the bottom, blackened in the cheap oven. She dumped it out, heart sinking with the bitter smell. The second batch came out raw in the middle. She stared at the gooey center, fighting the urge to throw the pan. "Slow down, Laura," she muttered, shoving frustration back down her throat. She adjusted the temperature, opened windows, and started again. Failure filled the trailer as thickly as the scent of half-baked batter. Neighbors wandered by, offering mixed reactions. One complimented her, then immediately asked for a discount. Another promised to pay next time, disappearing before she could object. Still, others praised her honestly, eating with grateful smiles. The park felt like a strange classroom, full of lessons she hadn't asked for. She spent the afternoon taking notes in her mother's cookbook. Not real recipes, just scribbles about heat, timing, what to avoid. Her handwriting slanted with impatience and determination. The kitchen grew hotter and messier, but somehow more alive. The trailer echoed with the clatter of bowls and her stubborn breathing. By evening, she had one good cake cooling on the rack. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, consistent, moist, and ready. She boxed slices carefully in old plastic containers she had saved. The handwritten labels wobbled but held their place. She lined them up like little soldiers waiting for their mission. Someone knocked just as she finished arranging them. It was the man with the wind chimes, smiling shyly. "I heard you've got the best thing going around here," he said. He bought 2 slices, paying more than the listed price. Her eyes stung, humbled by the quiet generosity. After he left, she leaned against the counter, breathing in deeply. She was exhausted, smudged with flour, hair sticking in every direction. But she had sold enough to matter enough to stay hopeful. The failures no longer felt like proof she couldn't succeed. They felt like the steps she needed to take on the way forward. Late afternoon sunlight stretched through the trailer, golden and thin. Laura wiped down the counter, humming without meaning to. Her phone buzzed on the table, startling her out of her rhythm. A familiar name filled the screen, her ex-husband Mark. Her stomach tightened as old ghosts rose without permission. She considered ignoring the call, but fear won out. Maybe something was wrong with their daughter, she answered, forcing her voice to sound calm. Instead of concern, Mark's tone came slick and confident. "So, I heard you're selling cake from a trailer now." Heat flared in her cheeks, part anger and part shame. "I'm doing what I need to do," she replied, gripping the counter. Mark chuckled, the sound sharp and cutting. "You don't have to embarrass yourself like this, Laura. I could help." His help always came wrapped in strings she no longer wanted. "I'm fine," she said, though her hand trembled. He sighed, the kind that said he didn't believe her. "You're 50, Laura. This isn't the time to play pretend entrepreneur." Tears threatened, but she held them back through clenched teeth. "I'm not pretending," she whispered, mostly to herself. After the call, the trailer felt smaller, walls closing in. Old doubts slithered back into her mind, heavy and familiar. What if he was right? What if she was deluding herself? The scent of sugar and vanilla seemed almost childish now. She sank into a chair, breathing in jagged, uneven bursts. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her daughter, Erin, with a message. "Mom, why didn't you tell me things were so bad?" A photo followed someone had posted about buying cake from the blue trailer lady. Shame washed over her, thick as tar, pulling her deeper. Laura set the phone down and pressed her hands to her face. Everything she feared about being seen had happened at once. The past had found her, the present judged her, and the future felt impossible. Yet somewhere under all of it was the memory of her first sale, and the truth that she had climbed out of darker places before. When Denise knocked that morning, Laura almost didn't answer. But the older woman's persistence won, as always. "We're having a little community fair on Saturday," Denise said. "You should set up a table. People will love your cakes." Laura shook her head, fear buzzing louder than opportunity. "I can't," she murmured. "I'm not ready for something like that." Denise raised an eyebrow as if the refusal were absurd. "You made half the park smile last week. Isn't that enough proof?" Laura wanted to believe her, but doubt clung stubbornly. Even so, the invitation stuck in her mind like a seed. She spent the next days baking in frantic bursts. Flour covered the counters, the floor, even her hair. She ruined 2 batches and perfected 1 recipe accidentally. A small stack of handwritten price tags waited on the table. Her nerves flickered between hope and dread like faulty lights. Saturday arrived with bright sun and an uneasy stomach. She loaded her cakes onto a borrowed folding table. The fair stretched across a small patch of grass near the park entrance. Kids ran between booths, and someone grilled hot dogs nearby. It felt both humble and terrifying, like stepping onto a stage. Just as she finished setting up, disaster struck. The old park generator sputtered, then died entirely. Fans stopped, lights blinked out, and people groaned in frustration. Without electricity, her cooler began to warm dangerously fast. She felt panic rising, sharp and breathless. But neighbors rallied, surprising her completely. Someone fetched bags of ice, piling them around her desserts. Another loaned a battery-powered fan to keep things cool. The man with the wind chimes stationed himself beside her table. "We're not letting your hard work melt away," he said firmly. By midday, people lined up for her cakes despite the heat. Children pointed at the frosting. Adults complimented the flavor. She sold out before the fair even ended, stunned by the demand. For the first time in months, she felt seen in a way that didn't hurt, and as she packed up, her hands trembled with gratitude instead of fear. That evening, she counted her earnings at the small kitchen table. The bills were soft from handling, faintly scented with sugar. It wasn't a fortune, barely enough to dent her overdue rent, but the stack felt heavy with meaning, far beyond the numbers. It was the proof of possibility, the weight of her own effort. She tucked the money into an envelope marked rent. For once, the word didn't sting with shame. Instead, it carried a quiet pride she didn't dare speak aloud. She traced the letters with a fingertip, imagining stability returning. Even small steps felt monumental when starting from nothing. With the leftover cash, she walked to the discount store nearby. The aisles buzzed with fluorescent lights and low-budget promise. She picked up a pale yellow curtain she didn't need but wanted. Something soft, something warm, something hers. A tiny symbol that her life wasn't only survival anymore. Back at the trailer, she hung the curtain carefully. The fabric transformed the window, softening the harsh light. For the first time, the space looked less temporary, less like a hiding place and more like a room where she belonged. She touched the fabric, feeling its gentle weight against her fingers. Later, neighbors stopped by with leftovers from the fair. Denise teased her about becoming the park's desert queen. Someone else complimented her booth setup. Laura laughed, shy but genuinely for the first time in ages. Their kindness stitched new strength into the cracks she carried. Her phone buzzed with a message from Erin. "Mom, can we talk tomorrow? I'm worried about you." The words tugged at her, both comforting and painful. She wasn't ready for the full truth, not yet, but she typed, "Yes, tomorrow," letting the promise settle. As the sun dipped low, she sat at the window, breathing softly. The trailer glowed with faint yellow light from the new curtains. The fair had not solved her problems, but it shifted her perspective. She felt the beginning of something small, fragile, but real. A future that didn't scare her quite as much as before. The next morning, Laura sat with her phone in her hand for a long time. Sunlight slipped around the edges of the new curtain, soft but insistent. Her reflection stared back from the dark screen, older and more tired than she remembered. She took a breath that felt too big for her lungs and pressed call. When Erin answered, her voice sounded both familiar and distant. "Hey Mom," Erin said, cautious, like approaching a wounded animal. For a moment, neither of them spoke, words stuck in invisible traffic. Laura's throat felt tight as she stared at the blue walls around her. "I'm okay," she started, then stopped, feeling the lie catch fire. "No, I'm not okay," she corrected, surprising them both. She told her daughter about the job she lost months ago, about the mortgage she couldn't keep up with, the house she had to leave, about the cheap motel, the panic, the eventual move to the blue trailer. The words spilled out like beads from a broken necklace, impossible to gather back. Her voice shook, but she did not stop this time. On the other end, Erin was silent for a long stretch. Laura imagined her daughter, eyebrows knit, pacing in a small apartment. "Why didn't you tell me?" Erin finally asked, hurt woven into each syllable. "I didn't want you to see me like this," Laura replied, tears blurring her vision. "I didn't want to be your burden." "You're my mom, not a burden," Erin said, but the sentence trembled. I would have helped. I could have. Something. Laura heard the edge of anger there, pointed and understandable. I was ashamed, Laura admitted, the word tasting like metal. I thought if I fixed it fast enough, you'd never have to know. Erin sighed, the sound heavy through the speaker. Dad told me about the cakes, she added quietly. He made it sound like some kind of joke, but it doesn't sound like a joke to me. Laura flinched, hearing the echo of Mark's condescension in the back of her mind. It's small, she said, but it's real. It's what I can do right now. I'm proud you're trying, Erin said after a pause. I'm also mad you didn't trust me with the truth. Both statements landed on Laura's heart with deep weight. Maybe we can figure it out together now, Erin added softly. For the first time, the distance between them felt slightly smaller. The following week, Laura looked at the trailer with different eyes. It was still small, still worn, still a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. But now it also felt like the place where she had finally told the truth. She decided it deserved better than peeling paint and sagging shelves. She deserved better than living like she was only passing through. With a small transfer from Erin, not charity, just support, her daughter insisted, and a bit of leftover fare money, Laura bought paint and supplies. She chose a softer shade of blue for the outside, brighter than before. Inside, she picked warm colors, things that made her think of sunrise and cake. At the hardware store, she felt both timid and excited, like a beginner at life. Back at the park, Denise appeared the moment she saw the paint cans. You finally decided this place is home, huh? She said, grinning. Laura shrugged, but her smile gave her away. Denise grabbed a brush without waiting for an invitation. Come on, let's make this trailer the prettiest thing on this gravel. They painted under the warm Florida sun, strokes steady and sure. The old, chipped blue disappeared under layers of new color. Neighbors wandered over, offering help, advice, and unsolicited opinions. Someone brought a radio, filling the air with old songs and laughter. The trailer slowly transformed from tired box to something almost charming. Inside, Laura reorganized the kitchen with newfound intention. She cleared counter space, installing a cheap but sturdy shelf. Her mother's cookbook got a permanent spot within easy reach. She labeled jars and containers, giving each ingredient a proper home. The small oven, once an afterthought, now felt like the heart of the place. Erin sent a package that arrived midweek, surprising her completely. Inside, Laura found a simple wooden sign with burned letters, Blue Trailer Bakes. Her eyes stung as she traced the letters, imagining her daughter choosing the font. She hung it carefully above the little counter, hands trembling. The sign made her small venture feel less like a secret and more like a declaration. That night, she sat outside on the newly painted steps. The trailer glowed softly in the fading light, colors deepening at dusk. She listened to the rustle of wind chimes and distant laughter. For the first time since losing the house, she felt something like belonging. The blue trailer was no longer just what she had left, it was where she was starting. One quiet afternoon, Laura wiped down the counter after a slow sales day. The park was unusually still, heat pressing everything into drowsy silence. Her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, then remembered she had promised herself to be braver. Hello, this is Laura, she answered, voice cautious but open. Hi Laura, this is Marisol from the Sunshine Cafe, a woman said. Laura frowned, searching her memory for the name. I tried your cake at the community fair, Marisol continued. It was the lemon one with the glaze. I haven't forgotten it. Laura's heart skipped, the memory sliding into place. I was wondering if you take larger orders, Marisol asked. I'm looking for a local baker for a weekend special. Maybe more if it goes well. Laura's mind raced, imagining trays and ovens and timing and disasters. Her first instinct was to say no, to protect herself from failing publicly. Instead, she heard herself say, yes, I do. They discussed details while Laura scribbled notes on a receipt envelope. 24 small cakes for Saturday, arranged nicely for a display. Enough to impress cafe customers but not so much that it was impossible. Marisol's trust sounded casual, but it felt huge from this side of the phone. When the call ended, Laura stared at her notes, half thrilled, half terrified. As soon as she hung up, panic began to creep in. Her oven was tiny, her supplies limited, her confidence like fragile glass. What if the cakes came out dry? What if she misjudged the time? What if this was her one real chance and she ruined it completely? She pressed her palms into the countertop, willing herself to breathe. That evening, she shared the news with Denise and the wind chime man, whose name she finally learned was Carl. They reacted as if she had announced a national achievement. "You're gonna knock their socks off," Denise declared. Carl nodded, saying, "We've seen the way people smile after your cakes. The cafe doesn't know how lucky it is." Their beliefs steadied her trembling thoughts. Later, as she measured ingredients for test batches, her phone buzzed again. A message from Aaron appeared. "Heard about the cafe. That's huge, Mom." Laura smiled, feeling the words wrap around her like a gentle hug. "I'm scared," she replied honestly this time. "Good," Aaron wrote back. "It means it matters." Saturday dawned with a heavy sky, clouds low and gray. Laura woke before her alarm, heart already racing ahead of her. She had planned every minute, baking, cooling, glazing, packing. Her notes covered the table like a strategist's map before battle. She tied back her hair and turned on the oven with a shaky hand. The first batch went smoothly, golden tops rising just right. She lined the little cakes on the rack, feeling a flicker of confidence. The second batch, though, refused to cooperate. Halfway through, the old oven sputtered and went dark with a soft click. Her breath caught as she stared at the lifeless dial. "No, no, no," she whispered, opening the door. The cakes inside drooped sadly, pale and half-baked. She twisted the knob again. Nothing happened. Panic surged like heat through her body, stronger than any oven coil. She felt the harsh echo of Mark's voice. "This isn't the time to pretend." For a moment, she considered calling Marisol to cancel. She imagined the disappointment, the lost opportunity, the embarrassment. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes as she gripped the counter. Then she remembered the fare, the broken generator, the way people had rallied. She refused to let this be the end of the story. She threw open the door and ran outside, scanning the park. "Denise," she called, louder than she intended. Within minutes, a small group had gathered, hearing the urgency in her voice. "My oven died," she explained, words tumbling out. "I have half an order and no way to finish the rest." Denise didn't hesitate, already pointing toward her own trailer. "Use mine. It's ugly but still works," she said. Carl offered to help carry pans and set timers. Another neighbor volunteered to watch the first batch while Laura shuffled between kitchens. The trailer park turned into an improvised bakery network. Laura moved as if in a dream, sprinting between ovens and counters. She double-checked times, adjusted temperatures, and prayed under her breath. By some combination of effort and grace, the last cakes cooled just in time. She arranged them carefully in borrowed containers, hands finally steady. As she sealed the last box, exhaustion hit her like a wave, but relief hit harder. The Sunshine Cafe buzzed with weekend chatter when she arrived. The air smelled of coffee, toast, and possibility. Marisol greeted her at the door, eyes widening at the sight of the boxers. "You did it," she said, as if there had ever been any doubt. Laura smiled, though her legs still felt like they were made of water. They laid out the cakes in the glass display, each one a small victory. Blazes shone softly under the warm lights, inviting and unpretentious. Customers trickled in, glancing at the new sign, "Weekend Special, Blue Trailer Cakes." The words made Laura's chest ache in the best way. Her life, distilled into 3 simple words and a flavor. She sat at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. From there, she watched the story unfold in real time. A woman took a bite, closed her eyes, and smiled. A man ordered a second piece to go, unable to resist. Marisol caught her gaze and gave a thumbs up from behind the counter. By midday, most of the cakes had disappeared from the display. Marisol returned to Laura's table, a satisfied grin on her face. "I'd like to make this a regular thing," she said. "Every weekend, if you're up for it." The words landed like a bridge stretching toward a new future. That evening, back at the trailer, Aaron called. "How did it go?" she asked, voice bright with anticipation. Laura told her everything. The broken oven, the neighbors, the cafe. Aaron laughed at the chaos and said, "You're tougher than you think, you know." Laura looked around at the painted walls and the wooden sign, and believed it. As the sun set, the blue trailer glowed softly against the darkening sky. Wind chimes sang in the warm breeze, and somewhere a radio played faintly. Laura stood outside on the steps, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. She hadn't gotten her old life back, and maybe she never would. Instead, she had built something new from the scraps of what remained. She knew there would still be hard months, slow days, and moments of doubt, but she also knew she'd no longer face them alone or ashamed. The trailer that once screamed failure now whispered beginning every time she saw it. She imagined other women her age, thinking it was too late to start over, and in her heart, she hoped her story might someday tell them otherwise.